Every October, the world transforms. Streets glow with jack-o'-lanterns, houses are covered in cobwebs, and children run from door to door dressed as witches, vampires, or monsters from their favorite movies. Adults join the fun too, hiding behind masks, becoming someone or something else, if only for a night. But have you ever truly wondered, why? Why do we wear costumes on Halloween? Why do we transform ourselves into the dead, the cursed, and the terrifying? The answer is far older and far darker than candy and parties. This tradition began thousands of years ago, long before superheroes, Hollywood, or plastic masks from the store. Its roots are buried deep in the soil of fear, fear of winter, fear of spirits, fear of death itself. And as we peel away the layers of history, we will find that wearing costumes was never just for fun. It was survival. It was ritual. It was protection from forces people could not explain. So, stay with me as we journey into the shadowy past. Because once you understand the truth, you may never look at your Halloween costume the same way again. Our story begins more than 2,000 years ago with the Celts of ancient Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Northern Europe. For them, the year was divided into two halves, the season of light and the season of darkness. The night of October 31st was Samhain, the great turning point of the year. Harvest was over, the fields stood empty, and the long cold winter was about to begin. But Samhain was not only about seasons, it was a night of danger. The Celts believed that on this night the barrier between the living and the dead grew weak, fragile, and thin. Spirits were free to roam the earth. Some were harmless, the souls of loved ones. Others were tricksters or worse, angry, vengeful, and hungry for the warmth of the living. Imagine standing in the Irish countryside 2,000 years ago. The mist is thick, the fire crackles in the distance, and you hear whispers on the wind. A shadow moves in the corner of your eye. Is it your neighbor returning from the field? Or is it something older, something that should not be walking this earth? The Celts were terrified of being recognized and taken by these wandering souls. So they came up with a strange defense. They wore disguises, animal skins, skulls, primitive wooden masks, soot smeared across their faces. They tried to look like the spirits themselves, hoping to confuse them. If you looked like the dead, maybe the dead would ignore you. Maybe they would pass you by. Picture tying a skull over your face as the bonfires roar. You whisper, "If I look like one of them, I will survive." That was the birth of the Halloween costume. Not as fun, not as celebration, but as camouflage against the supernatural. Centuries later, Christianity spread across Europe. The church wanted to erase these pagan rituals, to replace Samhain with something more holy. They renamed it All Hallows' Eve, the night before All Saints' Day. But old traditions are stubborn, and the people refuse to let go of their disguises. Now, instead of only dressing like animals or ghosts, they began to dress as saints, angels, and devils. The holiday became a strange mixture of sacred and unholy. Even as the church preached salvation, the people still feared the restless dead. They still lit fires, still disguised themselves, still tried to protect their souls. During the Middle Ages, another practice appeared, souling. The poor would go door to door wearing costumes, asking for bread or cakes in exchange for prayers for the souls of the departed. It was charity, but it also carried a threat. Give food, and you received a blessing. Refuse, and you risked the curse of the hungry spirit at your door. Imagine a lonely medieval night. A knock rattles your wooden door. You open it to see a hooded figure standing in silence. Then a whisper, "Bread for the souls of the departed." Would you give them food? Or would you risk misfortune for your family? Costumes once again became tools of fear, reminders that death was always close. When Irish and Scottish immigrants crossed the ocean to America in the 19th century, they carried these eerie traditions with them. Halloween followed them into the New World, but here it changed shape once more. In America's early Halloweens, costumes were not colorful or cute. They were unsettling, homemade, rough, often terrifying. Children cut holes into sacks or stitched together scraps of cloth into masks that covered their faces completely. Photographs from the early 1900s show costumes so disturbing that they look more like demons from nightmares than playful disguises. Look closely at one of these old black and white photographs. A child stands in the dirt, their head covered by a crude mask with hollow eyes. The mouth is a twisted slit. There is no smile, no expression, just emptiness. Another shows a group of children with sackcloth faces standing in silence, staring at the camera. These were not superheroes or fairies. These were echoes of something much darker. Imagine walking home in 1905, the night cold and silent, when suddenly a group of faceless children appears in the moonlight. They do not speak. They simply stare, frozen in their masks. Are they playing? Or is something else hiding behind those hollow eyes? By the mid-20th century, Halloween had begun to transform again. Communities wanted to make it safer, friendlier, less terrifying. Parades and parties became popular. And with them came the birth of the commercial costume industry. Companies started selling ready-made disguises, simple paper masks, plastic suits, colorful outfits that turned children into witches, ghosts, or clowns. And then came Hollywood. Movies in the 1930s and 40s gave the world iconic monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein. But it was the horror films of the 70s and 80s that changed Halloween forever. The white mask of Michael Myers, the claws of Freddy Krueger, the hockey mask of Jason Voorhees. These weren't just characters on screen, they became costumes worn by millions every October. Halloween was no longer just about hiding from spirits, it became about becoming them. People didn't only fear the monsters anymore, they wanted to wear their faces to embody them, if only for a night. What began as protection turned into transformation. But not everyone believes this change is harmless. Across many cultures, masks are considered powerful. They are not toys. They are spiritual tools. In some traditions, masks are believed to hold the essence of the spirits they represent. To wear one is to invite that essence into yourself. Think about it. When you put on a mask of a witch, are you simply pretending? Or are you opening a door, allowing the shadow of something older to step inside? When you dress as a demon, are you only playing? Or are you attracting the attention of something dark that sees you as a vessel? Masks conceal, but they also transform. They give you anonymity. They allow you to shed your own face and take on another. But what if the mask remembers? What if, when you remove it, something still lingers, watching from behind your reflection? From the ancient Celts hiding in the dark, to medieval beggars whispering prayers at your door, to the eerie homemade disguises of early America, and finally to the Hollywood-inspired monsters of today, one truth remains. Halloween costumes are more than simple fun. They are echoes of fear. They are fragments of ritual. They are pieces of an ancient tradition born from the belief that death itself might walk beside us on that final night of October. So this year, when you pull on your costume, remember, you're not just putting on fabric or plastic. You're putting on history, you're wearing fear, you're repeating a ritual older than memory. And maybe, just maybe, you're wearing something that is looking back at you. So tell me, what will you become this Halloween? If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of history, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share the scariest costume you've ever worn in the comments below. And remember, when you put on the mask this Halloween, it might not just be you looking out through the eye holes.